All right, guys, let's see if we are good here. Making sure we're all set on Facebook, on Periscope, and on YouTube. If you've been around recently, you know we've had some issues recently getting everything to fire. So let's just make sure we are live. Yes, it looks like we're good over on Facebook. Hello, everybody. If you are over there on Facebook right now, say hello in the chat just to make sure we are functional and looking great. Ryan and I have, oh, God.
Oh, hello.
We're all getting hurt today. Ryan and I have the giggles today.
Well, I think I gave everyone on the Packers beat the giggles this morning.
Oh, no.
It was my Christmas gift to you,
Yeah,
all
so
of you.
explain exactly, Ryan. What happened to you this morning?
Gravity.
Okay.
Gravity happened.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm walking down the stairs on my way to the morning press conference with Matt LaFleur, and, I have a minute or two to spare, so I'm making brisk pace.
Yes, as one does.
And I totally missed the step, and basically I crashed is what happened. Yeah, total face plant in front of everybody. It was amazing.
Literally everybody. Yeah, we were all
like everybody, like
there.
50 people. Like, you ever fallen or had that nightmare of when you like fall in front of the entire class? I lived it today. It was amazing.
I was face forward, minding my own business on my laptop, and I just hear this crash.
It was the sound that really got everyone, I think.
It was terrifying.
It was not quiet.
I thought it was someone much older who maybe their knees gave out or a hip gave out, one of those sorts of things. But no, it was just Ryan Wood.
So I get up, and I mean, what are you going to do? You totally ate it, right? There's no saving grace at this point. So I put my arms up, kind of gave the wave like I was all right, just kind of like, and the first thing I see is Rob Domofsky's face, and there was genuine concern. I mean, it was
really concerned.
Yeah, I know. And it was like, oh, this was a real spectacle. Like, this is worse than I thought it was. I was kind of partially hoping that I could play it cool. There was no playing it cool. There was no coolness after that. It was the opposite.
You owned it. Listen, I'm glad you're okay.
It was hilarious.
You're feeling well enough. We didn't have to put you on the injury report today. It was
iffy there.
Stream. Yeah, I was concerned. I was worried. It was like, gosh, what if I lose Ryan? Who am I going to have host our show with me today?
I mean, I would have much rather had been laughing at someone else because, that's the type of human I am. But the reality is it happened to me.
Right.
And it was still funny. What can I say?
It
was hilarious.
To the best of us. Well, Ryan, I'm glad you're here. Your ego is bruised, but everything else
my ego is eviscerated.
Is good to go. And that's all that matters. So thank you for toughing it out to be here with me. I'm sure everybody doesn't want to hear about this anymore, so let us move on. How about that? Let's talk about some actual injured people.
Yeah.
That didn't just fall down a flight of stairs and,
bruised the knee.
They hurt themselves doing some more legitimate things. Why not? So the injury, sorry.
I was just walking. What? That's not legitimate?
It's legitimate. It's not football related. How about that?
That's true.
So let's talk about the injury report. There's not a whole lot to talk about. I think worth noting that Tony Brown and Kevin King were both back at practice. They missed the game on Sunday with different injuries. Tony Brown with a heel injury, Kevin King with a shoulder injury. Kevin King was a limited participant. Tony Brown was a full participant. So it sounds like they're getting back into the swing of things. After all, they did practice all week last week too.
Which is why they practiced today. They practiced last week, especially with Kevin King. He's a full participant Friday. It just seems like one of those where they're playing Washington. You don't put one of your key players out there with they're not 100%, and you just give them the week going into a game where you're going to need them to be 100%. You're going to need Kevin King this week. So, I might be the biggest injury around here. Honestly, this team is healthy. It's very healthy.
Other limited participants include Geronimo Allison with a knee injury, Brian Balaga, Mercedes Lewis, and Tremont Williams were all veteran rest guys, limited. We've got Jimmy Graham with a wrist injury, limited, and Danny Vitale, calf injury, limited. Billy Turner, knee injury, limited. So just little things, seemingly little things across the board, but everybody was a participant in some capacity. There was no non-participants in practice today.
Really little things. I mean, they were at a walkthrough pace today. They did their Wednesday walkthrough, which they hadn't done. It's
been a little bit.
It's been a little bit, right? So it's not the first time this season. I asked Matt LaFleur this morning, once I dusted myself off, how much does he think the way he's managed the workload has kind of preserved the roster, and he said that he definitely think it's part of it. The reality is it's a very healthy team, and this is a team that is really put a high priority on their health, and you can see that in Week 15.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm heading over to the Facebook page right now. Hello, guys, in there. We're also live on Periscope and YouTube, as always. Hopefully YouTube's working. Sometimes YouTube doesn't always work, but, hopefully it is. But I will be taking questions from Facebook, as always. We've got our friend Adrian in here who says, I don't see Green Bay taking postseason away from San Francisco. If they've got to play them again, what are your thoughts on that? The Packers struggled, to say the very least, against the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, they really just got killed in every area of the game when they were out there in San Francisco. California has not been a kind place to the Green Bay Packers this season. And to have another chance to go up against them in the playoffs, if that opportunity does come about, do you think the Packers will approach it any differently? Can they look any differently against that team?
Well, I don't blame you for feeling that way because you saw what I saw, which was a 29-point blowout. So that's a large gap to close. There's a long way to get there from here, and we have no idea injuries primarily. If the 49ers will have any. We have no idea if they're even going to play, obviously, too. So, I mean, I don't think that it would be a 29-point game again. If you look at that game, there were opportunities early in the game for it to be closer, and the levee broke in the second half. There's no question about that. But I think that there's a lot of stuff for the Packers to learn. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's a 1-point game or a 29-point game. It's winning and losing, and it's that'd be a tough game. It'd be tough to go back out there, but they got to do it. They won't complain about it.
For sure. We wouldn't complain about it because it's warmer there.
It's cold out there. It is cold here. Oh, my goodness.
It is cold. We are not outside for a very good reason. It's about 6 degrees outside right now, so not great weather for
Feels like
humans.
6 degrees, too.
Not great weather for us to be outside. And the inside right here in the visitors' locker room is also pretty chilly. They don't really blast the heat in here when there's no visiting team hanging around.
I'm okay. She's cold, though.
We're okay. So. We'll make it through. I'm going to fix your hat a little bit. There you go.
It's Mike.
So let's see what we got here. Jerron wants to know, will Kevin King play Sunday? I would assume he'd be more inclined to play on Sunday against an NFC North opponent, a team in the Chicago Bears that are looking to keep something of a playoff aspiration alive. They're going to be playing like they are for sure. And the Packers are playing with their destiny in their hands, even though I guess that doesn't technically make any sense because by definition, destiny literally means that you cannot control it. However, the Packers control their future, I guess you could say, if they are able to win out here.
Yeah, the thing that I wondered from the Packers' perspective is if this is kind of an unofficial start to the playoffs because if they win from here, they get the 2 seed. That they're in control of that opportunity. If they win from here, they get the first round bye, the home game, the divisional round, all that. Well, the other side, it is definitely playoff time for the Bears. I mean, they're in the same position the Packers were last year when they went down late in the season, I think week 15, to Chicago, where they were alive by the skin of their teeth and they needed a whole lot of help. But the one thing they absolutely had to do was win, and they, of course, lost. The Packers can end the Bears season on Sunday. So it's kind of a role reversal, but as much as that 2 seed dangles out there as a carrot for this team, there is nothing like literal do or die, and that is where the Bears is in that mode. So they have reason to be the more desperate team. The key for the Packers is to not let them be the more desperate team.
Mm-hmm. Jerry wants to know, or he says it's a request. I'll let Matt LaFleur know this for you, Jerry. Please start Robert Tonyan at tight end. We saw a lot of the tight ends on Sunday. We saw all 4 of the tight ends at some point during the game. Sometimes we saw 3 tight ends on the field at one time. Mercedes Lewis and Jimmy Graham have been given that starter role. We've often, and if I'm not mistaken, I think we saw both tight ends on the field to start the drive on the Packers' opening drive, Jimmy Graham and Mercedes Lewis. But regardless, Robert Tonyan has been getting on the field early, and he's been getting on the field somewhat often since he came back from his injury. What sort of power do the Packers have with 4 healthy, available tight ends on the field?
Yeah, that gives them a lot of scheme versatility for one. They can do a lot in the running game and obviously in the passing game as well. I hear you. Robert Tanyan's looked pretty good, and I know Pete Doherty wrote about it this week, and it's not always that Pete and I agree, but I definitely do agree with Pete in saying that Robert Tanyan should be getting more snaps. I mean, he's looked good, so we'll see if that happens, and it'd be curious to hear what Matt LaFleur thinks of that as well.
And I think what Tom Silverstein wrote about recently, again, there's so much wonderful content over on PackersNews.com that sometimes I forget who writes it, but I believe Tom wrote about how utilizing the tight ends on Sunday was able to help open up the running game and help spring Aaron Jones more so than it did against the Giants. So having those four guys out there, especially Jay Sternberger, Robert Tanyan, who opposing teams haven't seen that much of them. There's not a ton of film on these two guys, especially Sternberger out there, to be able to use them a little bit more in these next 3 games. I mean, opposing defenses have to honor them no matter where they are on the field. So I think that could give the Packers a big edge.
There's a reason why their best formation, their best personnel grouping this year has been the 12, the 2 tight end personnel grouping. It camouflages what they're doing offensively, whether it's run or pass. They've got guys that can move around the formation. They've got guys that can line up in line. So there's a lot of versatility in how they can use that position. Now, they not have a lot of production there, direct production from tight ends, but it does factor into what Matt LaFleur does in dressing up his offense. So, when they go to 13, 3 tight end, or on occasion if they go to 14, then it's something where they can further dress it up.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Michael says he hasn't heard much from Jake Kumaro lately. Is it just a rotation thing? He had a very big block to spring Aaron Jones free on Sunday for a big gain. So he's been involved in areas of the offense that might not be as noticeable to the fans just because his name doesn't have, a reception next to it. But he is contributing in other ways that's helping the Packers move on the field.
Has he had a reception since Kansas City?
It's been a little while.
Because he had that touchdown at the end of the first half against Oakland. Then he had that goofy-looking pass that Aaron Rodgers threw with the curve on it early in that Kansas City game. And so he had those 2 big plays back-to-back weeks. And it has been quiet. I mean, it's been, let's be honest here, it's been quiet for receivers in general, especially receivers not named Devontae Adams. So there's plenty of company there. But, I mean, the reality is that they don't have a consistent number 2, and they haven't had it for 15 weeks, and I don't know how that's going to change in the final 3.
Got a couple people asking in here, Sean, and we've got, who else? Andrew asking about the chances of Odell Beckham Jr. playing next year with Aaron Rodgers. I think there was a report that Beckham Jr. had alluded to wanting to play with Rodgers or something along those lines. How realistic is that? Is that a possibility? I don't actually know all of his circumstances currently and what his contract situation is, but I don't know. I guess anything could happen, right?
I haven't looked into it. I haven't done any reporting on it. I have a hard time seeing it happen. Sounds like one of those fantasy football topics that gets thrown out there and is more fantasy than football. So
very, very snappy, very catchy there, Ryan.
I
more
do what
fantasy
I can.
than football.
I do what I can.
I like that. I like that a lot. Oh, somebody had a thing that I liked that I wanted to address. So, gosh, it was more or less, if I can find your name, I will get to it. This is, Someone had asked, going into the playoffs, should the Packers be more concerned about the state of their defense versus their offense? There are reasons for concern on both sides. The difference is that, I guess, in the red zone, is an important part on both sides. The defense doesn't want to let up a lot of points. The Packers want to score a lot of points.
Right.
The defense hasn't given up a ton of points. They've been pretty solid in the red zone. And the offense, when they're down in the red zone, historically, they've been pretty good. This past Sunday, I think, was it this past Sunday? They were 2 for 4 in the red zone, so not so good. But yes, I think that consistency on offense has been an issue, and if it doesn't fix itself, I think that will be a problem. I don't think that the inconsistencies aren't necessarily reflected in that 10-3. They have been finding ways to win, but I don't know if that's going to reveal itself, those issues, perhaps in these last 3 games.
So both sides have had their issues this year.
Yep.
Neither side has kind of gone through unblemished. The difference to me is that defensively, I can see a path, a blueprint for how this defense could work in January. It's really 3-pronged. It's getting after the passer. They do that. That's huge in the playoffs. They do that with the Smiths. It's creating turnovers. They're very opportunistic, very aggressive, sometimes too aggressive. They give up the big play. They give up a lot of yards, but they create turnovers, and that's huge in the playoffs. And then it's the red zone, as you said, bending, not breaking. They give up a lot of yards. Don't let that convert into touchdowns. They do that pretty well. Those 3 things are huge in the playoffs, so I can see how that would work. Offensively, I don't see the answers as well. I don't. And Matt LaFleur even said Sunday, if he knew the answers, he wouldn't be up there talking about a win where they had 20 points against a bad team at home. So that to me is more troubling, more problematic, because what is the answers offensively other than giving Aaron Jones even more touches? I mean, at some point I do wonder if they're just going to say the restrictions are off. 25, 30-plus touches for Aaron Jones. He's the best player that they have in that offense. Ride him as long as he can. It might not be this week, but at some point I would imagine that might happen. That could drastically affect the offense because he has been their best player this year. So maybe that, short of that, like they're not suddenly going to get a number 2 receiver. I don't think that's going to happen. So it's Devontae Adams, and hope that by committee you can piece it together enough, and that's a lot to hope. So it's just harder for me to see the answers on that side of the ball.
Mm-hmm. That was a question from Nick, by the way. So Michael asks, when would IR players be eligible to return, specifically Equanimous St. Brown, wide receiver who was injured over, it's been, training camp, preseason? It's been a while. So Sternberger came back. He was one of the players that the Packers designated to return off of IR. They've got 1 more left.
They don't need it.
They don't. And then would St. Brown start practicing?
He was on season ending. He's done.
So he's done.
He didn't make the initial 53, so they ended his season in August.
Okay.
Or maybe it was September 1st or something. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So he's out of the question.
Yeah. I mean, Raven Green and Lane Taylor, but neither of those guys are going to be healthy enough to come back this year. That's it. I mean, that's really it. They're healthy. They don't need that other designation. It's kind of amazing when you think about this team. And I know that you paid attention the last few years. It's been pretty health has been an issue. They're so healthy they actually don't need both designations from IR. That's unreal.
It is. Someone had asked earlier about the weather for Sunday. I believe, I don't know what the weather's supposed to be right at kickoff, what the temperature's supposed to be. I believe it's supposed to be 15 degrees is the high for the day.
That's what my phone says. 14 degrees, low of 1. Don't go outside unless you're layered in 15 different layers.
Unless you're us, because we will be outside. We'll see
Except
about
for
after
the press box.
After the game, we'll see what we end up doing.
I really like that they never took the roof off the Lambeau Field press box. That would be bad.
Could you imagine?
No.
Yuck. Yuck. Ryan Grant is also a topic of discussion from Jerron and Misael. They both want to know, where is he? Will he play on Sunday? My guess is no. He probably won't because he hasn't played all season. So why would they change anything different? Because everybody else is healthy. Clearly something isn't clicking in practice. He's not jumping over anybody, which you'd have to think. It's like you said, it's been a little bit quiet from the receivers, at least on game day. Why not give Grant a try? I know we've opened this can of worms many a time on this show.
I give up. It makes sense to me. I will never understand why, when you have receivers doing nothing in the passing game for weeks on end, you don't try to see what a guy who has literally played and produced in this league can do. Why not even look at him? It'll never make sense to me. But if history is a great teacher, the answer is no. He will not play unless there's an injury on Sunday.
Here's the flip side. At least this is what I'm thinking. If you take one receiver out and you replace him with Grant, what message does that send to the receiver that's inactive?
Play better.
Sure, but then is that received well? Does that player take it
If
well?
it's received poorly, could it be worse? Because like they're not doing anything.
And is that the end of their future as a Green Bay Packer?
No, I wouldn't go that far. I mean, they could always earn it back in practice, you know? Now, if Ryan Grant, here's what might happen. Ryan Grant might get out there, and he might actually play well because, again, he's played and produced in this league. So that's a possibility. And if that happens, then all of a sudden you'll have a receiver who is not going 3-4 weeks without a catch, and that's an issue.
All right, devil's advocate. Let us know what you
No,
think.
I hear what you're saying, but yeah.
All right, Ryan. Any other final thoughts as we wrap up this lovely Wednesday afternoon?
I'm just really glad to be indoors right now.
Yes, like we said, if you're living in Green Bay, don't go outside. Why bother?
I'm indoors and I'm sitting upright instead of on the ground, so it's good for me right now.
I was this close. I've got a scarf off camera here. I was this close to just using it as a blanket on this. You know, we try to keep it professional, right? We want to like casual but not too casual. I was ready to just like bundle up and chill out.
You know, I should also add. If you are wondering how my dear colleague here reacted to the tumble today, if there was any like concern on her face, if she was worried at all, the answer was a hard no. Yeah, she thought it was hilarious. She literally after the Fleurs press conference, I turn around and she's laughing at me.
That's after I knew you were okay.
Okay, but she's laughing at me. Like I turn around, and I'm like, oh boy, and I just knew right there. It's like, oh boy. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that out.
In the moment, I was scared. I was shocked, but when I saw it was you and you got up and you were like, like I knew you were fine. So I'm not worried about you.
Okay.
And you're clearly fine now. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for joining us. We always appreciate chatting with you guys. Make sure you check out PackersNews.com for all of your Packers news, very appropriately titled. Also, follow us on all of our social media platforms so you get all of our updates from all our very esteemed, intelligent writers and reporters. Great people. I enjoy them.